Hey, welcome back. We are doing a full review today of the TRM Neutron 2. Full disclosure, TRM was generous enough to send this to me to check out. They had seen I had like a first gen TRM Atom and I'm sorry, Neutron, I think it was, and they wanted me to check out this latest version. So got to do that, and in turn I was glad to spend some time actually carrying it, using it a little bit, and really assessing it. I got to do an unboxing already, so you've probably seen that, and I've realized a few things since then that are worth noting, so I'll go through some of those. But let's get down to it. First, let's start out with a quick measurement here. So I'll do a little sizing. So the blade itself comes in right around 3 inches with just under 3 inches of cutting edge, which is really ideal for a lot of states where you cannot be over 3 inches or even at 3 inches. Total length, 7 1/8 right there on the total length. So really good EDC size, and made even more good for EDC through the weight of the knife. Let's take a quick look. It was just over 3 ounces, or right around 3.255 ounces, so pretty ideal for most. Very few people would consider that to be too big. If you do feel like that is too heavy, they do have versions of this in Micarta and other finishes, so that might be more ideal. Which brings me to the first point about this knife that I think makes it kind of unique and noteworthy for some folks, particularly those that like modding, which is that it's really a platform. And I didn't notice this in the first video, but it has nested liners. So it looks initially like it's just a slab of titanium, and I initially was like, oh, it's not milled out. Well, it actually is milled out because there's a liner inside there that holds all the internals in place. And these liners can be replaced, the scales can be replaced on top of the liners. So it's a pretty neat platform for people that like changing up their knife and might want to do different finishes. This particular one is the most top end. It's called the lizard skin textured titanium finish and scale, and it's really nice. You know, not a lot of hardware on here, but you can actually see here where you can remove the scale, and I was thinking I might even do that here on the video. I thought I had prepared the correct size. Of course I didn't. So let me go ahead and get that out of here. And I think this is what makes this a pretty cool platform, is that it's very easy to change this out. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look. I don't know if this is, I haven't tried this yet, so I don't know if this is actually going to come off, or if this pivot screw here is also helping hold the scale on. I imagine it might be, but let's learn together. Cool. So it totally comes off there, which isn't surprising given what I had seen in the platform. Now you can even see a little more about how this platform works. So it has these nested liners. These are also titanium, I understand. So let me just double check here. Yep, not getting anything here. So all titanium. And so you have these nice nested titanium liners that are totally independent, and you know, it can hold the knife together. Technically, you could remove, you know, the pocket clip in this back one and have really no liners on there and use it in its most minimal form. It's already a bit lighter here, but to give you a sense of what the weight is on that liner, and I imagine the Micarta would be a little less. We'll go ahead and just give this a quick weigh in. I'll take out the hardware just to be as objective as possible. So 0.7 ounces per liner, and I imagine again that these are, you know, going to go down in weight as you go with one of their TEK-Wood or Micarta, whatever other different versions they do on these liners. So we'll go ahead and just put that back on, but you can see how easy that was. I'd never done it before, didn't prepare that ahead of this video. I just knew I wanted to check it out and figured I would just kill two birds with one stone and do it on video to see how good or bad it might be from a user experience perspective. And I would say quite good. That was very easy. Everything just worked. Screws didn't strip or anything. That was very easy, and I didn't have to, you know, go removing other things. I was a little afraid once I started it that I might have misread and had to remove that pivot screw, but I didn't. And this comes back in the same centering that it had before. It does seem like it's slightly off to the clip side, but I'm very, very slight. It's generally stayed well centered through the use that I've put on it. It came out of box very sharp as well. So that's one thing worth noting, is that it was very well sharpened. It has a beautiful edge on it and a very functional edge. I feel like sometimes you get like a good edge on a knife, and sometimes you get what I'll call a functional edge on a knife, which is one that you could use for a while and it'll actually hold up because of how they, you know, basically set up the edge for the type of steel and everything. I feel like this is a very good edge profile for the thickness of the blade, which is quite thin. I'd say it's probably 1/100th. Let me take a look. You know, probably 1/10 of an inch behind the edge if I had to guess here, but I'm just gonna see if I can find that online really quickly. Does it say blade stock thickness? Yeah, actually even lower, so 9/900ths. So less than 1/10 of an inch behind the edge. Actually, you know what? I'm looking at an atom here. Let me go back to a Neutron and just make sure it's the same. Sorry, I don't want to get the wrong information on here. That's what I get for trying to do this on the fly. And I just have this box here we'll go through in a second as well to kind of go through what it comes with. All right, now I'm on the correct one. Yeah, same width. I thought that's what it was. So about 90/100ths behind the edge, very slicey. And then after I go through the box and what it came with, then I'll get into some other stuff. So it came with a patch, in this case, a sticker, inside the box, some of the stuff you'd expect, info about the knife and so on. You can go look stuff up online. They do everything in the USA, including the hardware, from what I'm told. Haven't been to the facility myself. Now let's talk about the things that I didn't love. Now I did figure out a fix for this, but the pocket clip I don't love. You can see it's very tall here and very low here, so it's hard to get over the pants. Now, by being tall here, it does give you a good purchase to pull it up and slide it in over your pants. So you can just kind of put your knife down, grab it like this, and slide it into your pocket no problem, because you can pull it back. So there's a fix for it because of the way it's designed, but for me, this is a total design flaw. If I were to keep this long term, I'd probably rebend this if I wasn't concerned about potentially reselling the knife or something, and make that more of a shape that I'd actually like, or buy an aftermarket. It clearly has the typical pattern there that you could buy an aftermarket clip for, but I'd prefer something, you know, along these lines where it's lower, so it's going to grab the pocket better over here, and higher, so it's going to grab the pocket less over here. No idea where this design came from or why they do that, but hey, it's different. Number two thing I don't love about the knife, the thumb stud. So apparently someone told me you can get a rubber band to put on there and it makes it feel very comfortable. That's great, but I don't really personally want rubber bands in my thumb studs. Like, I think the thumb stud should just work. And so I prefer more of a mountain stack style thumb stud like this guy. Right, and it just works and it's just comfortable, and that's, to me, certainly something like when I grab the knife, especially because once in a while, if you don't do it quite right and you push too far this way, you kind of miss it, and just you get a grab of sharp thumb stud there. Let me see if I can zoom in on, right, that goes into your thumb and just yanks it, and it's like, oh, that does not feel great. So, you know, assuming you get it, it's not a problem. But when you miss and just kind of stalls out and kind of sticks, that is a very uncomfortable experience. So not a big fan of that. It doesn't feel great rolling it out. It's just not a great thumb stud. And hey, you might start watching this video and start writing a comment like, hey, you know, wuss, like, go ahead and toughen up your thumbs or whatever. Okay, sure. Yeah, if you have steel thumbs, then it's probably not a problem. Or if you just don't care and you kind of take pride in, you know, making yourself uncomfortable, I get that. I do that on my mountain bike, but I don't really want to do it on my thumb stud on my knife. So I do not like the thumb stud. I'd say that's an opportunity for improvement, or maybe if you don't care about the rubber band, then that's your solution. Third and second to last thing I don't love is the detent's quite good on this deployment when you're pushing it out, but when it's coming back in, it's kind of muted and kind of weird. And it's not very satisfying compared to some knives that I've worked with. So that's just a little bit of an opportunity for improvement. It's not like a big deal, but it's one of those things where really nice knives tend to feel a little better than that. If you whip it a little bit, you get a little more sound out of it just by crashing it down there, but not the best like closing detent I've ever felt. The knife feels kind of like a slip joint or something in that way. Now, granted, it's not like a pop it out slip joint, but it's very simple, like very thin. That's the sort of the last thing, is it feels kind of thin in the hand. So you got this big pocket clip and then a thin knife, and that's not like my favorite, but the ergo design is good. So those things are those things. Now the positives, and I've already talked about some of them, but the nested liner thing is cool. The milling is maybe one of the coolest patterns that I've seen. It gets super small over here, almost to the point where I got to zoom in the video so you can see it. Like that's now 3x zoom in order to be able to see that. Like I basically almost can't see this over here with my naked eye. It's like, is there actually milling there? I'm not sure. It's that detailed. It's really cool. So I think that fade is like something that they do on brown knives and others. I love that. I think that's a really cool look. And so this is very nice. I think in the last video I was guessing what the price was. It is $365 or so on the MSRP here. So, you know, for that price, the knife feels, it's like, okay, it's made in USA, so I can kind of understand why it's this price, but I want a little more. The action is good, but it's not like glassy. It's like smooth, but it's not like refined. So it's a washer knife, and it has this kind of like gooey feeling. And it's not that it's bad, again, but it's not as good as like some of those top end knives where you just have crazy, even my Wells Blade Works feels like a little more glassy. It's the Lamia is that one's on bearings, but yeah, it's not a Chris Reeves in terms of that glassiness. That's, I guess, what I'd say about it. But it's much more carryable than a Chris Reeves. And for how thin it is with good lockup and everything, overall, it's pretty darn good. So I'm a fan. 20 CV blade steel, love it. You know, if you're at this price point, you expect to have a good blade steel, and they did pack that in there, so that's good. The weight, the sizing, all good. Again, the deployment when you're deploying it for opening is great. And then pretty good access to the lock bar. It's not my favorite part. Like the lock bar is a little small. I kind of wish it was like a little longer and maybe a little more access there, but it does the job. It's not like the tactile Rockwell where that's like a big deficiency. You can definitely get access to it. So it's well done in a compact and kind of efficient way. I like the general profile from an ergo's perspective. It's designed with human hands in mind. Would like maybe a little jimping up here when I'm grabbing it, but overall, opened some packages with it. It did brilliantly. I love the tip. It's kind of like, it's a drop point, I feel like, but it's kind of like a spear point at the same time. Like if you look at the kind of alignment to the handle, it goes down a little further than most drop points, or it doesn't come up quite as far, maybe a better way to describe it. So I do like the general shape from a usability perspective. Grind's pretty high here, and so it's pretty thin behind the edge, but not so much that you're worried about breaking it. It feels very usable in the grind. It's not super thin behind the edge. It could even be a little thinner maybe at the bottom, but it feels like it's made to last for a long time. Because of the way they did the choil here, you'd be able to sharpen that for quite a while too. So this does feel like one of those knives that's made to last a few decades. And it feels like a knife that's made by someone that takes a lot of pride in their craftsmanship, despite, you know, doing a pretty good amount of volume that they do. So overall, definitely a thumbs up on this one. It doesn't quite make a top 10 list for me or anything, but for a lot of people that are going for Made in USA, I'll tell you what you're going to potentially be comparing that to. Doing, and this is maybe a one-off, but you know, a G10 only knife from Walter Wells Blade Works is going to cost you $100 more, 50 to $100 more, and you don't have the titanium scales, but still nice. A Benchmade bug out titanium scales, you're going to be paying, you know, maybe 300 or 350. So you're, you know, Benchmade, if you're, you know, in that range, it's probably pretty similar on price. And this feels like a little more special to me. You got a Hinderer, 3-inch, 425 with just a G10. You're talking 625 with the tie scale, so a much more expensive option. Spyderco's got some options out there. They don't really do a lot of tie scale, but you know, you could bring up your Spyderco to snuff for around the same price or maybe a couple bucks more. Going from there, like the SPK Lamia, you know, somewhere in the $750 range, you're definitely spending quite a bit more at that point, so probably not a good comparable. And then the one that I think is probably the best comparable, although very different, would be like a tactile, either the Rockwall, or I don't have one here, but the tactile Maverick, I think is a really good kind of competitor, even though it's a different blade mechanism, you know, more of an axis lock. I think tactile is a really good comparable to decide, you know, like, is this the right size? Just a very different shape, but it's very similar size, and like overall quality feel is very similar in terms of what you get. Very different platforms, but also similar in ways. So overall, good knife. You know, definitely carried it, and it disappeared in my pocket pretty well. I was a little concerned that the pocket clip here was so high that it was just going to slip out of my pocket, but it never slipped out of my pocket, so it seemed to do a good job. You know, for being a fully textured titanium knife, those can get a little heavier, and this one did a good job of, you know, being at the right weight for a good EDC knife, and that's what I think it would be. You know, it's a really good EDC knife. It's not necessarily like, you know, if you're a big collector, like you need one of these in the collection. I don't know if I feel that way. It's not that knife. It's, although with that textured tie scale, it might be for you. But it's not like, you know, like an artisan, or like a, you know, a big custom knife, a really nice, you know, top end knife like this guy, or maybe like the Oz Roosevelt, where I'm like, hey, if you're a knife collector, you got to have one of these in the collection because it does these certain things better than other knives. That's not really what it is. It's like a good, dependable EDC that is also very nice looking. That's kind of my description of this knife. And it's a thumb stud away from being something that I was grabbing pretty often. Like I did it because I was going to carry it for 3 straight days, and then I alternated it a few times with other knives for like a week to kind of compare it side by side, because sometimes you get used to things and you start forgetting without context how it actually compares. So I did 3 straight days with it. They were great. And then I started rotating it for like a week, and it did a very good job as just an everyday carry knife. You cannot go wrong with it for that purpose. You know, it's made in USA, it's quality, and the service that they offer looks spectacular. The people over there I've interacted with, fantastic. So when it comes to the company itself, I'd say top notch on TRM as a company to deal with. I was really impressed with the people that I interacted with throughout the process. So I think that's all for now. Feel free to throw any comments or questions. If I missed something, or if you have a question for me, feel free to let me know. Thanks to TRM again for sending that out for the review, and please like and subscribe if you'd like to, and make sure you don't miss any more content, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.